robot right there.
Where?
Behind you. Yeah, so...
Abiotic Factor might be the best survival game I have ever played. Some of you might be aware about my misgivings about the wider survival game genre. When I uploaded that video, I was kind of surprised to see that talking about survival games in the current state that they're in was a hotter topic than I thought. Even still, people agreed with the points that I had to make for that video. And today, I'm happy to say that my grievances were actually answered, by way of the new kid on the block, basically just getting everything right. If you want to go ahead and save some time and just get an opinion on Abiotic Factor, then let me tell you right now that if you were on the fence about this game, I think it's absolutely worth your time and you should definitely check it out. It's just the kind of change-up that we absolutely needed in the survival game genre. But if you need a little bit more convincing, then stick around, because I have some things to say. Abiotic Factor's story and setting are based heavily off of Half-Life 1, and it wears those inspirations on its sleeve, but it just kind of twists the narrative a little bit. Kind of a lot, actually. Instead of you being an overly capable scientist in a strange spacesuit, running around in a story-based first-person shooter game, you're instead a regular scientist just trying to do your best and survive. Let me put it this way, you are not Gordon Freeman here. You are much more similar to something like Dr. Kleiner, or Dr. Coomer.
Feed me my coins, Mr. Freeman.
And this sort of feeling of being in over your head is going to permeate and dictate a lot of your playtime throughout the game. You have to plan around your inadequacy as a character in order to do anything in the game correctly. This can range from the combat to the crafting to just any number of things. And what you'll notice is that every little aspect of the game will start to feed into another little aspect of the game and make a perfect seamless blend of all the stuff that you can do. Combat, for example, is going to seem super unassuming until you actually start fighting anything. Picking a fight with even the smallest enemy, the pest for example, is going to involve making nets in order to actually do any damage to them, simply because picking a head-on fight with them is too dangerous starting out. So instead of crafting a weapon like a sword or a spear or anything, you're going to be crafting nets so that you can stomp them in one shot. And as the game goes on, you'll be able to unlock more weapons and other easier ways to deal with the harder enemies. In this way, you sort of unlock the easy options for combat, but the other weapons also act as gateways to take on the tougher enemies. The reason I cold opened the video with us fighting the robot for the first time is because it's kind of a perfect example of this. I'd like to say that they're probably the first big hurdle you have to jump over, and figuring out how to deal with them effectively is like a genuine puzzle. And like the best of video game puzzles, there's several ways to go about a solution. Whenever we first fought the security robots, they ended up basically downing all of us until we actually killed it. So barely finishing that fight by just the skin of our teeth meant that we had to find ways to make that fight easier and more in our favor. So in our experience, we decided to use slushy bombs to basically freeze it in place and leave it open for a couple of attacks. And this ended up working consistently. But like I said, there's a whole bunch of ways to go about this specific mode of combat. This is just one enemy. It's not even a boss. We were incentivized to come up with a solution because we needed to and we were incentivized to, and it was genuinely fun to come up with it. Especially whenever we figured out that it worked. This game really nails the light bulb eureka moment. Given how you're playing as a scientist, that definitely works. But the setting is super interesting for a whole bunch of reasons as well. For one, I can safely say that nobody's really played a survival game where they're running around in a facility of some kind before, so that's immediately super cool because where do you get food or water? Those are the kind of things you have to think about and you have to plan for and come up with solutions to. But it's also an interesting way to integrate level progression and also the level design itself. This isn't your sort of standard run-of-the-mill open-world survival setting. This is an interconnected map with shortcuts and passageways and keys you need to unlock gates. At least figuratively speaking anyway. Even from the earliest moments in the game, you get a pretty open area to explore. Each little room and hallway basically has their own materials that you can gather from them. And said materials make sense with what section they're from. You can find a bunch of crates with industrial equipment in like the storage sector or something like that. If you want snacks, you can go to a break room. But the end goal of trying to get to a specific area is sort of your main objective, and there's only unfortunately one way to do that. It's typically crafting something. You'll essentially craft a figurative key. The first time you see this is going to be through the keypad hacker, which unlocks doors of level 1 clearance. And this is the reason you also need to start hunting robots. Which yeah, the end goal for everybody being the same is kind of lame, but how you go about getting materials is completely individual. It's going to be based on how you want to go about it, how you want to go about that fight, what makes the most sense to you and stuff like that. And crafting is similarly nuanced. Crafting in this game is a big enough deal that I made it sort of a subject in the previous video. And I really do think that. Once again, like most other things in the game, you wouldn't really assume very much from it. It just kind of looks like typical crafting in any other game. And especially whenever you're just starting out, it's going to feel like that. You'll start crafting a lot of the more basic recipes starting out, obviously. But what you'll notice is that as you get stronger and as you get more recipes, as you get more capable, you're more or less going to be using the same materials all throughout your playthrough. They'll just be sort of transformed into new materials. Scrap steel makes bolts, for example, and bolts are used for all kinds of things. And no, don't worry, you'll come across new materials too. And I'm gonna sound like a broken record a little bit here, but like I said in the crafting video, this means that every material basically increases in value as you're going along in the game. It's never devalued. And what things you can scrap or break apart or take with you also gets sort of a higher quantity as time goes on, at least in terms of what materials you can gain from them. This part's gonna sound a little bit like a non sequitur, but I'll also just mention that if you're getting tired of the lab aesthetic, don't worry, there's more environments to explore too. And those particular environments are pretty unique as well. And namely, it's because basically all of its resources respawn after a couple of in-game days, including the particularly rare or exclusive materials found only in that sort of extra biome or extra level. I'm being kind of vague around the topic to not spoil it, but you get it. I'm just gonna take this opportunity to rather inelegantly jump over to the skills segment too, just because I don't have anywhere else to fit it. Skill trees in survival games is always a particularly touchy subject for me, at least just personally. I basically just have a weird personal problem with wanting to make everybody sort of divide and conquer with what they're good at in any given scenario. I like the idea of somebody being the cook in a survival game. I like the idea of somebody being a farmer in a survival game. What so many games do and kind of get wrong for me is that anybody can spec into anything so long as they care about it. It makes a survival game skill tree or tech tree or whatever you want to call it feel a lot less personal. But to sort of counter my own point, I understand that not everybody thinks like that. And it would be a lot more annoying to say wait for your friend to get back online so that they can do the farming or the cooking because they're just better at it. So then the coolest thing about Abiotic Factor is that it's basically kind of a perfect blend between both of these ideas. Say for instance that you really like firearms, and you want your character to be better at using them because the aim sway is kind of super annoying. All you basically have to do is start using the weapon types a whole bunch and then you'll get better at using firearms. If you decide to hardcore go into that skill, then you basically become the marksman vicariously. But you and your friends are going to be able to see that and basically denote you as the firearm expert. And over half of the skills are like that. Like yeah, obviously there's a sprinting skill and being able to run around is something that everybody's gonna do. But if you want to focus into something like throwables or blunt melee weapons or sharp melee weapons and you just want to be more effective at those, then all you have to do is get comfortable and use those. If you like something, you're rewarded for using it and getting better with it. And that's a simple design practice. But man, did these devs really get it right.
It's good, it's good, it's good, it's good.
Oh my god.
Wow, okay, cool. Hey, security puppy, CPU.
Finally.
Ow.
I don't actually know if I have anything negative to talk about here necessarily. Like yeah, the game is in early access, maybe a little rough around the edges, maybe a little bug here or there, but nothing's gonna soft lock you, it's not any game breaking stuff or anything. I look forward to new updates and stuff so long as they're as tightly designed as the rest of the game so far, and so far I haven't had any evidence to the contrary. But yeah, here I rest my case I guess. If I haven't convinced you to try Abiotic Factor yet, then I really don't know what else to mention unless you just want the game spoiled for yourself. Again, if you're super unsure of it, then just go ahead and jump into it. I am of the mindset that it's a unique and rewarding experience that's pretty sorely missed in the survival genre. It's also coming in at a nice $25, which in my opinion is a pretty good asking price for something of this quality. And why not? If you're looking for something new and unique, it's right here. For me though, I think I'm gonna go ahead and get out of here. Probably play more Abiotic Factor. If you liked the video, then hit the like button or hit subscribe. I've been trying my best lately to come out with a new video every Friday, so. And if you feel like being really nice, I also have a Patreon. Subscribing to that will get you access to a Discord, and also have your name at the end of these videos. So if you feel like sparing $1, then it would go a long way for making this a day job for me. But yeah, other than that, I'm gonna go ahead and head out of here. Have a good one, y'all.